What is up, fellow humans of the apocalypse? I am kind of back at this podcast thing. I'm re entering from an embryonic state of forgetting what to do and being completely sort of not focused on this journey I was on, this thing that I set out at the beginning of the year to do. Um, kind of guilty, kind of feel guilty about it. It's been over a month. I do happen to have two podcasts. The one that you're going to hear now was recorded about a month ago after a failed attempt at recording it, in the sense that I was mad sciencing in my office and I deleted the recording. I had to do a double take, a take two with my guest on this particular podcast, and then I've been in the thick of it. It's funny. I think in this podcast we covered off, it was one of the two interviews I did, but I'm pretty sure it's in this one, that immersion into a thing, that going after something, really understanding it and chasing down the information. I've been 3D printing. I've been designing. I've been building things. I've been manufacturing to a certain degree, and it's sparked something inside of me that's been so distracting that it's been taking all of my time and focus. I also have been sort of thinking about this podcast and what I set out to do and what I intended to do, and it changing kind of dramatically as a result of the coronavirus epidemic, this pandemic we find ourselves in. Oddly enough, everything became that in the podcasts, and the cornerstone of the conversations was really only about those things. And that's not to say that the content wasn't interesting and we ventured around all the bits and pieces, but it was just so fresh and new. It felt like everything ended up in the COVID corner, the COVID conspiracy bucket, and I, for one, was sort of grappling with this whole thing. I don't know about you guys, but I've been in quarantine, self isolation for quite some time now. I've been dealing with a number of major changes, not only in my own life, but my children's lives and my wife's life, and and other friends' lives. And it's just so fucking weird, for lack of a better description. It's an odd thing to be a part of right now. And it's so distracting that I kind of lost my way with this podcast. I didn't really know how to re-enter this. I felt like a dickhead for deleting the recording. I had a bit of momentum, but truth be told, I don't have a lot of interviews. People's lives have changed. They're doing different things. I mean, I could chase the interviews, and that's been distracted because my priorities personally shifted a little bit. But I do have another interview coming up after this one. I got 2 weeks in the bag. But even in that, I also was doing food for thought, and I've dropped that as well because my mind wasn't clear as to anything other than the experience I was in, the sort of world of COVID, and I didn't want to go there. So, I guess sort of nipping it in the bud, I had to walk away for a bit to kind of get some clarity about what I was doing in order to re-immerse myself back in this journey of inner monologue and sort of what that means and where we're all at. Now, we're months into something that's probably had a lot of people losing their minds, freaking out, figuring it out. Plenty of inner monologue going on, plenty of new problems to solve. And as a result, I kind of came out of the other end of this in the sense that it's okay to kind of be confused by my own personal experience and how that's been, hijacked by this, global pandemic and the changes. But, at the same time, it doesn't deviate from the journey, the journey being talking to people about their own personal experiences and what they're going through and where they're at. So I think because everybody's kind of calmed down a bit, we're all a bit used to it. I think I can recommence this podcast to a certain degree. Now, in the unfortunate nature of a take two, in the sort of embarrassment, I suppose, of it, I forgot to do the introduction of my guest. I forgot to ask them who they were. I forgot to get a bit of the background story, all of the stuff that I deleted, and I think it was because we were just kind of re-immersing ourselves back into this take two that I definitely, as the host, forgot to get what I needed to do it. So this interview is with a guy I know, a coworker named Paul Joe Hajj. I have worked with him for a number of years now. He has a design background and is one of those guys that likes to look at the humans and figure out what the heck it is they're up to. This is always in the perspective of our working relationship, from the perspective of a product and services. But I did notice early on in my working with Paul that, he has a want and desire to sit back and see what's going on more. He wants to understand it at a more human level, almost more of a philosophical state, in order to better understand the decision mechanisms that a person is going through, in order to better understand what it is they're going to do, want, need, whatever. And then, from a working perspective, it's always one sort of sided, in that, we're looking to provide a service or build a thing. But those skills in looking at humans and in groups of people and understanding the sort of mentalities based on data response and all that sort of stuff, I always found quite fascinating. And I do think he's quite good at it. And it made me want to sit down and have a conversation with him. We both had a great first interview. But the second interview was also quite good as well, because it was almost like we were old hat. We were getting through something, that was a little bit not deeper, but had a different richness about it. I was just listening back to it, and and I found that we were far more in the pocket of comfort and understanding things. It was almost as if doing one podcast was a great warm up, and number two came at the cost of missing some of the fundamentals. But nevertheless, Paul was awesome to have stepped back up and said, yeah, no problem. I'll re-record this with you. Oh boy, I felt like a dickhead. Anyway, so yeah, outside of not having much to talk about Paul in the sense of his backstory, he's from Australia. He was, gosh dang, now I'm guessing because I can't remember because it was over a month ago. But born in Australia, I want to say, yeah, that's it. Born in Australia. I can't say New South Wales. I want to say he's not from New South Wales. I want to say he's from Adelaide, from Radelaide, because it feels like that's the right thing to say. But I could be butchering this at this point because it's just second guessing all of it. God damn it, Joe. What are you doing? Anyway, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at when I don't do things in real time. I can't remember the details. The details have gone. Look, I'm just going to cut to it. I feel like that's the point, right? I've given you my update. I've told you why I failed at doing this particular episode. I've ripped the Band-Aid off. I've told you why I've been having my own little mini gap year and why I'm not getting back to it. Look, let's hear what Paul and I had to talk about. I think that's the part you probably showed up for. So let's cut to it, eh? Like, what do you say we get to that old interview? This is my chat with Paul. Hope you guys enjoy it. So, firstly, I am so sorry about this. Do you want to know how I did it, or do you care?
Nah, I don't care, because all I'm happy about is you get to talk again. So don't even tell me.
Fucking this fucking guy.
I don't care. Just don't fucking delete me.
It won't. Yeah, it won't happen again.
Because it was a good chat we had last time.
It was really good. I had written one thing down, which I thought was great. I'm just going to open that up real quick. It had to do with what you said about, you need to teach cars human aggression or they will never merge. That was potentially the title of this whole episode that I accidentally deleted. Oh man. And then I went and watched the pandemic thing, which by the way, I've referred to many people to watch. Everyone thumbs up.
How fucking crazy is it?
It was crazy.
It's just like, just the whole fact that they made it before COVID made it 30 times more crazy.
Oh, 100%. Like I don't.
Because you're watching it in retrospect.
Yeah, well,
because you're watching.
They talk about knowing that it's coming, which was kind of like the idea that this could arrive at any point in time. That was the spooky part too.
They talked about the wet market. They talked about it. Like, you know what I mean?
But the ending was really what So like you think about like there's been two big things that have happened in say the last 9 months, right? That have been like the globe kind of pulling together. Um, we've got the COVID-19 now, which has just fucked us all up. But prior to that, it was the old little Miss Greta Thunberg, and the climate thing. And
Yeah, I don't know how I feel. I don't know enough about her to have an opinion.
well,
But
it's
I know that
the
she's been
outcome of her,
sensationalized. Yeah.
right? So what is she calling for?
Is it the outcome of her, or was she just the marketing for the movement? Like, I don't know.
I don't know if it
I
matters.
don't know.
I think that she was a catalyst, whether you break it down any other way. She was a catalyst for a conversation.
Yeah,
so
because I
whether
saw her on
she's
your
used or not.
Facebook, so I know that you're a fan. Like,
Well, I did it tongue in cheek as well because I had many mates calling me going, "What the fuck are you doing? You're not some weirdo." And I like it. Like I just love the fact that she made a bunch of really normally like calm people fucking lose their shit because she was spouting off. And I like the idea, whether or not you believe she wrote her stuff or not. Or she was motivated by herself to do this. I like the idea that kids can have real opinions and actually do real things. I don't like that we box kids up into this. You'll do something later, and then when they're 30, they figure out what they're going to do, and have real value.
Yeah, but
to
by
society.
then they're approaching diabetes, have accumulated $100,000 in credit card debt, and
exactly. And who knows what they've become at that point and what biases they've created. So you're totally kind of fucked by the time you're too old. But when you're young, and it all stems from this idea or this thing where, when you're like between the ages, I think of 13 to 15, your brain and your activity and the things that you're doing are the things that you'll carry. You're that in level of, like skills and certain talents, things that you'll carry for the rest of your life. Right. And what's weird about that statement is like, you may learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube then. You may learn how to juggle. You may learn how to play an instrument. You may know how to do some of these really unique skills. And those things never disappear from your ability for the rest of your life because the imprint moment, right?
Yeah.
So like we don't get that ever again. And so when I was learning about adolescence and the evolution of children and the way that hormones work and a number of different aspects of why these things take place, it made me refocus my effort on that window and that timing, right? And the skills and the things that kids learn, and what they're exposing themselves to and the impression that you get that you're going to carry for quite some time. You'll get influence and you might chase, but like all your good habits happen then. Your ability to, form good habits are all kind of happening right there. And that's the way you're going to carry yourself for the rest of high school through to university into jobs.
That's so that is something that fucks with me a lot, and I'm constantly in this internal dialogue, this internal battle around. I'll tell it in a much more funnier, lighthearted way. Do you know who Patrice O'Neill is?
No.
He's a comedian.
No, I might, but
so He's passed away now.
Oh, right, okay.
He actually died from diabetes, but he was known as the most, like his last feature special, I think it might, Elephant in the Room, it might even be on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
He I think, so he was known for how rude, like straight to the, comedians are like, gory, but, and blunt. But this guy was like, he just didn't care, right? He's just the funniest, most honest, spoke, particularly from a male's perspective, spoke like, explain the world from a male's perspective a lot of the time, which is hilarious. But his last feature special, he knew his diabetes was becoming fatal, so he ramped it up.
Yeah.
So he ramped it up and he went even harder, but there's one part of it where he goes, man, there's nothing that makes me sicker than seeing some old 50-year-old fat guy on the treadmill. he's like, you're done, buddy.
Yeah, right.
You're set in stone. Like your brain doesn't work anymore. You're not gonna learn any new skills. Like you're done. And I know he's saying it as a joke, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's playing into a joke, but there's this truth in it of like to change your behavior at that point in life
Mm.
is exponentially harder
Oh yeah.
than if you were to try and approach those behaviors in your early 20s. Not saying it's not possible. Not saying it's not possible, but it is exponentially harder. And you don't even need science to tell you. You just need reflection. I'm 29.
Yeah.
And there are habits I have that feel almost impossible to break.
Oh yeah.
Right?
100%.
And I'm 29. I'm not 60. I'm half of 60.
Yeah.
So now a lot of the times in this inner monologue, this battle that I'm constantly having in my mind is like, do you just throw in the towel at this point? And I know I have a habit of, and I'm not saying I would, but my mind likes to flirt with really disturbing thoughts.
Yeah.
And like thoughts that make you feel uncomfortable in your skin. And like and sometimes I push myself to go, well, you had your moment to really turn into someone that's fantastic, and you threw that away. So now you're just going to kind of ride it out in whatever you had left, which is not my plan at all, and not what I want to do at all. But it's just that, and I always, it's comical, but it's always so real when I think about that skit. Then it makes you think about how fucking crucial it is for kids to, because you can't appreciate that moment. You need someone to really drill it into you that you're not going to get these 5 to 10 years again, where you become character, where it's character forming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that 10 to 20, man, that 10-year-old to 20-year-old, I feel like you could run algorithms to pretty much predict how people's lives would go with some degree of confidence based on how their 10 to 20s went. 10 to 20.
Yeah. I think that the way at which we are imprinted, I think there's two prongs to it too, because I think it has to do with one, what you do from that point at which you start to break free and become the person you're going to be, the decisions you start to make, the stuff you're doing on your own through that autonomy that you're building. So like that 10 to 20, like you're saying. And then I think also too, it has to do with what your parents do to you, and how they choose to influence you as a person. So I think two things come together, because you got to think of one of those things from 0 to 10, you're doing everything that you're told by your parents. You have no idea what you're doing. But from about 10 on, they start to cut you through.
I wonder if 0 to 10 actually is more impactful than 10 to 20.
Well, I think it depends on who you talk to, but I think, they will say that a lot of what you do through 10 to 20 will be influenced as a result of 0 to 10.
Yeah.
So I think they're tied together, but you got to think about like the things you do behind your parents' back, right? So like at about that 10-year-old moment, that's when you start to do a lot more stuff on your own. Like you might play in your room on your own. You might have your own things going on. Now these would be very innocent things, but it's like I was talking about today about, kids and the internet, right? The internet is a fire hose, right? And my analogy was this, you give the kid an uncontrolled phone, right? Or device that's connected to the internet. And there's a good, very high % chance that within an hour, they will possibly land in pornography land. Some form of adult content will eventually, if they're just allowed to click whatever they want, go wherever they go, and blah, 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 before you know it, there's a good chance that could happen, right? Because the nature at which their decisions will be driven through their innocence, right? But, but that's exponentially changed if someone is seeking it out. You can get there in seconds, right? So like, I kind of like in my mind, I'm thinking, well, kids don't really know, right? As they move through life, it comes from an innocence. Right? They don't know better. It's not like they seek these things. It's through other experiences or other influences that create those question marks in their lives to seek the knowledge, right? We're always seeking new information and knowledge, right? And so until you don't know it, you don't know what you don't know. And so as soon as somebody says to you, oh, well, this exists, you're like, what, does it? Do I go look for that now? Is that a thing I'm going to go and find? And it doesn't even have to be pornography. It could be anything, right? It could be anything.
I agree. And there's some caveats to it though, because the exposure to the existence of it is one thing.
Yeah.
But then it depends on the individual if they go back for more.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, for example, let's use drugs for example.
Sure.
I've tried more than one type. I've tried a whole bunch of different types of recreational drugs.
Sure. But
there's only one or two that I went back for.
Sure.
But then the ones that I didn't go back for, I've watched destroy people's lives. And I've seen study after study about how it destroys people's lives. So there's that bit as well where it's like your genetic predisposition to being drawn to something. And so like the pornography thing, it applies to adult content as well. Or even like, man, did you ever go on that website Black Sheep Wall?
No.
Does that ring a bell at all? So, do you know those beautiful days of like the internet? I'm talking like 04, 05, where websites were like black wallpapers and Comic Sans in yellow font and video links to the headings, and you know what I mean? Like really weird. Like you found those pockets of like these cute, fun, but you could play pool and watch Saddam Hussein get beheaded on the same website.
Like, weird.
Like those errors.
Like, I want to say that was the world of mashup, when everything was getting mashed together, and that was a cool word. Oh, look at this mashup of things.
Yeah, that's right. That's actually so true. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But so growing up, like when I was around 11. Man, I couldn't get enough of that stuff. Like, I just could not get enough because it was so far from my world of where I was at the time.
Yeah.
I was never taught to love it. I was never taught to be interested in that stuff. In fact, me and my brother used to play this game called Diablo.
Yeah, I play that now.
You play D3?
Yeah, D3. We play, the whole family plays. We all four play at the same time. We just
that is the dream.
Yeah, that is the dream.
That is the dream, honestly. Like, that's such a beautiful thing. Yeah. What a bonding experience, though, right? Like,
yeah, it's great. We love it. We have to do like a ritual about it as well, because of the nature of, you can always check your loot. So we have only moments where we do that because it's a massive. We tried Warhammer. We got into that, like, just to check it out. It's a like for like-ish sort of thing. There's parts of that we liked from an experience, but we just fell back into Diablo because I just purchased the Pyromancer expansion and was like, okay, cool. My son's like, yeah, cool. I'm a Pyromancer now. So
nice, man.
Yeah, it's fun.
I would have thought you would be a barbarian.
Oh, me? Oh, so I started off as not the barbarian. Maybe it was the barbarian. No, because there's two big dudes. I was the knight, more like the knight guy initially, and then we all have three characters on the go, so 3 or 4 characters on the go. Yeah. Right. One of my son's characters' name is Hitler, so he runs around. We're like, "Come on, Hitler, let's go!" Oh boy,
man, how amazing is that? That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's really cool.
We enjoy it.
But yeah, we used to play like there was nothing in my family, my life upbringing that said video games. Yeah, right. Is where it's at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's just that me and my brother there were 3 boys, and my little sister. One wasn't into games like we were.
Yeah.
But me and my other brother were like super just geeked out, right? And so far into our upbringing that, the Diablo logos, what do you call that logo? The demonic.
Oh, what
do you call that?
Oh, you're talking about like the pentagram? No.
Pentagram, yeah.
Yeah, the star.
Yeah,
thing,
so my parents would see that loading sign and then they used to ask my other brother, were we possessed by the devil?
Yeah.
Because it was so foreign to them growing up, right? Like, so far, it's kind of cute and innocent in a funny way when you think about it.
Yeah.
they were that worried. But my like something that I'm always curious about is like, yeah, there's the exposure element, but what is it that makes a particular person click with something?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's just such a hard thing to navigate, because then it's like, well, you play video games instead of fucking learning, physics to become an astronaut. But that's what you did in your 10s to 20s. But you didn't know the implications of enjoying yourself and having fun.
Yeah.
But then it grows to be that, well, because you did that between 10 to 20,
yeah,
you now actually can't be an astronaut. It's like, there's this injustice to it all. It's like there's this like, hey, why didn't I get on the shot? And it's why I saw this really incredible talk. So I'm a massive Jordan Peterson fan.
Okay.
I went and saw him speak at Opera House. I've listened to his like actual lectures when he's at uni lecturing.
Yeah.
Not just like interviews where he's trying to get set up. And he has this one segment of like an actual uni lecture he was giving, and he talks about what it takes to be in the top 1% of anything, and how extraordinarily difficult and close to impossible, and how many different things need to work together in conjunction for you to even be legible to become someone who's in the top 1%. And I'm not going to go into like how much, all the detail in it.
Yeah.
But I'll give you two examples, like two qualities of like 20 that he talks has to be together in conjunction. One is you have to not have any genetic condition that makes you incapable of focusing on the same task for 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
You can't be someone who clocks out who can't focus anymore at night after 9 hours.
Yeah.
You just can't be, because it's just not going to cut it. It's just not how it works. And then the other thing is, you also have to be someone who just so happens to be obsessed with the thing that they're exceptionally good at. That's just two qualities. And if you just think about them two by themselves, how unlikely it is that you know anyone that does those two. Then not to mention be in a geographic location that even allows you to pursue that. So you're not the best rapper. You're not the best. You're not the best. I don't know. Say F1 driver.
Yeah.
But it just turns out you're born in Ghana. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to also be in a place that enables your ability to then excel in that particular thing. Like, and it's just like all the and what his whole point was is it's actually quite unrealistic to ever think that you're in control of becoming the 1%. You may be in control of becoming the top 1% or something if you are privy to the conditions that will qualify you to even have a shot. But the injustice in all of it for me is that these are the people we idolize. Yeah. And that's just really not fair, because the standards are so unrealistic.
Well,
like so incredibly unrealistic.
But it's an incredible amount of luck.
Yeah,
it's an incredible amount of luck.
It's luck.
Yeah.
And I remember watching. I watched it like 5 or 10 years ago. I remember watching an interview with Warren Buffett, and someone goes, "What do you think made you as good as you are?" And he said, "You know what? The number one fucking contributor to the fact that I was able to do anything remotely close to what I've done." And like, what? He goes, "I was born a guy."
Yeah.
I was born a guy in the 50s or whatever year it was. I think it was like the 40s or something. Yeah. I was born a guy. My dad was an investment banker, and I got to sit in his office and be around the books. And it just so happened to be that I loved reading about the books that I was surrounded by. So I just did that every day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't some zero starting ground of being like, what do I want to do? okay, I want to go be the best fucking industrial designer.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to be the top 1% of industrial design? Well, it's just not that. And I feel like there's this like massive gap between the insecurities and the pressures we put on people to perform to that level. And if they don't, well, you're just not going to get acknowledged.
I think that's true, but then we're speaking about, and this, I don't mean this in any other way than the word itself, is that kind of concept of mediocrity or the middle. You know, it's like it's a place where we all live, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a part of me that is concerned that, but then this is the conspirator in me thinking that the people at the top need the people in the middle to stay there. You know what I mean? But it's like they need us to dream of the bigger thing, right? To be 1%, because as long as we're chasing that and failing to get there, you know, like there's sort of a momentum about that chase as well. I think that you're right. From an algorithm perspective, like a truest sort of circumstantial, right place, right time, right set of skills, certain amount of, you know, influence and all that sort of stuff. Yes, that's where the greats come from, right? You know, you always hear about the 1%ers great, you know, the greatness of their story, and sometimes it's very surprising or shocking where they come from. But there are also people that are 1%ers that is just boring as shit. You know what I mean? Like they're just, you know, they're not great actually. They're just circumstantially in the right position as a result of things. And I say this tongue in cheek, but you know, I look at the Kardashian family, you know, and that's the ultimate example to me of people who are just have more money than they can do anything with, just able to just make more and more money through what they do, which is just insane to me because they're just, you know, machines for generating wealth as a result of circumstance. You know, and it's
like
a
luck,
crazy
like sheer luck.
Sheer luck.
Like, sheer luck. But like, I don't want to take away from anyone that busted their ass off when they didn't need to. Yeah. That's not my point. My point is not to discredit the incredibly hard, because I'm a massive rap fan. Like I'm a diehard rap fan, and some of the stories you hear of like the things they needed to go through to even get into a position to be able to fucking have an hour in the studio, it's just like mind blowing what they were juggling at the time. Like, and their ability to adapt to the situations was fine, but we just, the thing that I hate is that you won't see, how do I put this? You won't see anyone in middle management on the cover of a Forbes magazine.
No.
Whereas that would be so much more relative to me, where I could just look at someone who's really good at middle management. Like we're talking an incredible middle manager. Like the whole middle's being sorted with this guy.
Yeah.
But you don't. Well, you know, you get Jeff Bezos.
But I think that goes back to what I'm saying. It's like this idea that, you know, they need to shine the light on the unattainable, right?
Yeah.
In order to keep us moving. If they allowed us all to just go, being in the middle's fine, that's the top end, then what does it mean? No one's going to reach beyond that. You know, and I think there's a certain amount of like the sort of the way at which that institutionalization we come from around education and the way that work actually works is they do want talent to rise to the top, and they can't recognize it unless they put some sort of hierarchical thing in place for people to sort of prove themselves and rise up. But I think more times than not, we just see the wrong people these days getting opportunity and you know, and that sort of stuff. But I think there's a really interesting sentiment to what you're saying around, you know, where are all the real people, the ones that I can relate to? That to me is an interesting problem.
That is exactly my point of like, I think it makes a, you know, like for me, one of the most incredible people of our time for me, well, one, I'm a massive Elon Musk junkie, but Elon Musk is kind of like, he even admits himself, he has some form of mutation to be able to perform at that level, which good on him for being as honest about it. But like, I'm a massive Jay-Z fan.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, I know his full story. I know just the way he moves, the way he operates, the things that he did to get to the position that he's in. And it's like extremely intelligent individual, extremely savvy businessman, blah, blah, blah. But I can derive principles from him, but I have nothing in common with him. He's not just out of reach that I can aspire to. He's a mogul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and it's that point of like, well, where's the guy that's 3 steps ahead of me? So that I know what I need to do to get to where I need to be in a year's time. How can I close those 3 steps? And there's this fucking, and maybe it's on me. Maybe I'm not looking for it. And there's places, there's forums around there. There's like little communities around there. There's mentorship that I'm not tapping into. But I see a lot of people in my same boat where you look at their Instagram feed and there's just 1%. And the funny thing is, we look at them and we forget the fact that it's 1%. You put yourself in a room of 10, only one guy's going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're just conveniently ignoring the fact that, well, there's a 99% chance that doesn't apply to me here.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
100%. Yeah.
So it's like, well, where's this other 99%? But where's this, more specifically, where's this 20% that surrounds me? The lower 10% that I can give guidance to, and 10% above me that can give me actionable, immediate, like guidance and influence. And now this brings us to the second one. I know I'm talking a lot, so I'm sorry,
that's right, man.
But you got me on a theme. This brings me to why I believe in podcasts so much, because I think podcast is an answer to a lot of this. Exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're doing. That's why I was so keen as soon as you mentioned it for me to jump on. I think I self-invited. I don't even remember. But
No, I invited you, man. I said, come do the podcast. Okay. You're like, yeah, man, totally. I was like, oh.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Well, like, this is a way. Long-form, unedited conversations with everyday people. And get an angle where people kind of know what they're getting themselves into. To be honest, I'm not fully across what the angle, if there is an angle for this podcast is.
Am I across it, or are you?
No, myself. Well, like I don't even know if I've asked you.
Oh, well, we did talk about it in the first recording that I accidentally deleted.
Right.
But we haven't done this one. Yeah, we haven't done this one in the same way because we just jumped in as if we already knew what we were doing, which makes sense because it's a take 2. So, I'm all down for that. But I mean, like the premise of this.
No, but I mean, the premise of not this talk in particular, but like the whole program.
Yeah, right.
Like what's the pitch for it?
This for my particular flavor of podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. So the pitch for this is that we all suffer from an inner monologue, and that inner monologue drives us, right? And we are dealing with that on a regular basis, and the stories that we keep to ourselves or the stories that we tell are influential to others who are struggling with the same set of problems. I actually believe that there's a limited set of problems we all have, and everybody struggles with them. It's just that we don't talk about them at all because we're either ashamed of them, or we just keep them to ourselves, or we just can't be bothered.
Beautiful.
Right? Yeah.
Like fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, and this is why I think podcasts is a straight up solution to a lot of this. Of like, hey, we don't need to wait for some fucking underpaid journalist to decide to put someone on the front of a magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
We that goes through 4 chief editors before it's even published. Joe Rogan just pulls someone up, has a little following, and it actually doesn't matter how many people come and listen. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're putting content out. You know what I mean? Like, the rest actually does. The rest you can't control anyway. Like, all you got to do is just put content out, and someone's going to listen to this or any of the other episodes and hear a few things, and it's like, fuck, someone else. I really respect that. Like, yeah. someone else is going through exactly what I thought was just an internal thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think
That's
that
brilliant.
yeah, and
Truly is.
I think it has opened up a lot of opportunity for people like I was not to totally change gears, but then I kind of in the apocalypse, I found myself more involved in TikTok, and as I've gotten more involved in looking at TikTok and seeing the content being created on TikTok, which I find some people are just incredible at creating very entertaining small bits on TikTok, to the point where I think it's brilliant that it sets a standard of how you're going to go forward. Such as soon as you put a towel on your head, you're a woman. If you wear a hoodie, you're a boy.
Yeah, you told me that.
It's
Yeah.
horrible in its nature, but it's perfect because it's like everyone can do this low rent production, and we all get it because we're all this active audience for the platform, right? But now I find myself like this. My punchline to this sort of, now that I live in this apocalypse of TikTok, the algorithm now knows when I'm taking a shit and only sends me very sad things for me to sit on the toilet and cry and shit at the same time. So it's like, it's just such a weird reality where content creators have such insane platforms to create things, right? To share a story, to resonate. And I don't think that we've lived in a world, it's the one thing that I think is where the good of the internet and the good of these devices comes through is like, people can have a much bigger voice than they used to. You don't feel so alone when you're out here creating things. You can create it, and you can create a very small little audience, but then they fall in love with that, and that they want more of what you've got. And they're asking for it.
And the number one thing is the goal is to get big. You can't get big without a catalog.
Yeah.
So you have to put in these years, like at least a couple of years of just smashing out content.
Just got to keep
going. So you get groups of people will find. There's one rapper. His name's Russ. He's a really controversial rapper because he's everything that the industry isn't.
Yeah.
And he's gone completely independent. But there's this phenomenon behind him, which is it's fucking mind blowing. He's put a whole new spin on independence. So he's like this American Italian, then from I think Boston. He's got that, that Boston attitude of like you can't, that Italians from Boston of like you just can never tell me anything. You were never gonna tell me anything. Anyway. I've like musically, he's got some bangers, but overall, like he does a bit of singing, he does a bit of rapping, whatever. Not my full style. Anyway, just to put it, I'm going to tell the story, his story a little back to front. So he is probably the first artist I've ever seen. He's purely independent, never signed. He masters his own music, he produces his own tracks, he engineers his own tracks, he writes his own songs, he sings and he raps. Right. So he's the entire production house in himself. If you go on his Instagram, he will go to like some rent like Sweden, and he'll sell out an arena of 20,000 people. Yeah, sold out. No supporting act, not even a DJ, just him. Walks on stage, performs. Gets every penny because there's no middlemen and leaves. Does this around the world. Has gotten to the point where he's sold out Madison Square Garden. Fascinating. The way he started. So for like 5 years, he was making songs and releasing them. But what he was doing, he was releasing albums on SoundCloud.
Yeah, right.
Releasing albums on SoundCloud, and like 5 years passed. I think from 15 to like 22, or 13 or 14 to like 22.
Yeah.
After 5 years, he caught a trend where the first song on every album had the most number of listens. So this guy was pumping music out. He has a massive catalog. But the first song on every album had the highest number of views. And he worked out that the algorithm, for some reason, favors the first track or favors individual releases.
Right.
And that people were more likely to listen to the first song than they were the fourth song, because you're not an established artist that's selling albums and people know you and they're going to listen to the whole thing. So what he did, gave himself a challenge, 52 weeks, he did a song a week. I
Right.
think on every Friday or every Thursday,
Yeah.
a song a week. And he noticed his views went from 2,000 to 3,000 to 5,000 to 15,000 to 20,000 until he hit the millions, and then he got a following. But because he stayed so true to his formula, and
Yeah.
he put out a bit every week. By the time he blew up, he had a whole catalog of music just as good as his latest stuff
Yeah. Right.
that people could leverage, and he hockey sticked,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he exploded because he worked out that people only need little bits and pieces at a time. You can't just drop an album and expect some type of response. And B, as soon as people like you, for them to stay liking you, is they need to have material. So you actually don't want success in your first year with this
No.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't, not even your second year, because you're working out who you are, you're working out what your angle is, and you're getting your catalog together. And I just find that such a humbling story to me, because that to me is a real life story of you actually can go and arrange this.
Mm.
You can manage this, or there's ways that you can approach it. Right now, he's an absolute superstar, but he wasn't a superstar for 12 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is it's just a fascinating story, and I see podcasts having that exact same potential.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard a lot about how people have been around a while before they really get traction in podcasts. Like 3, 4, 5 years. But same with a lot of people that have the YouTube channels as well. It does take a long time unless they're just so happen to kind of get that right moment to blow up and continue with their content. But a similar scenario. You know, people are like, "Oh, you got to go do it." I want to say that most people have to. The average is like 5 years before you really start to pick up, and you really have to get after it for a long period of time with regular content.
Yeah.
It's funny though.
What was your team?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I was going to ask, because I'm genuinely curious, what was your tipping point of being like, you know, fuck it, I'm going to start a podcast?
So I've always thought about content creation and what my brand of content creation is. So I did do when I was cycling for a while, I did a vlog for cycling. And so I was creating kind of like a weekly video or just kind of mostly probably about a weekly video. And, that was fun and people were interested. And it kind of was like, oh, this is neat, but it was just a lot of overhead. And, I lost my job. That's right before I got a job at IAG, to be honest, that I kind of stopped that. And, it was just one of those things where it was fun creating content. And I'd always thought about podcasts, even way back when I was, kind of publishing podcasts on behalf of different things. Before it was in one of those formats that people were into, and I was like, it's interesting to talk, right? So I kind of like I've always been someone who is not short of words or saying things or having crazy ideas or willing to share what's in my mind, but I didn't really have a hook of any sort. Like there's nothing that I had to center around. And as I got older, I started to realize that I find myself in positions whereby I'm the person that seemingly is the ear at which is hearing a thing that nobody's listening to. And so what I end up doing is I latch onto that and then I ask people questions that maybe they do or don't want to hear, or I call it out for what I'm hearing it as and not what they're saying it as. And so what ends up happening is I end up having these really interesting, what I deem meaningful, valuable conversations with people about things that really matter and not superficial bullshit. And, people are like, have often said to me, oh, you should write a book, or, oh man, why is it that of things, or why are you always right about that stuff? Or, these sort of weird things that people feed back to me that I was like, I don't know. It's not that it was about the ego stroke as much. It was like, it was a pattern. And I was like, it's weird that I'm always in this odd position based on my experience in my life that I'm the sage, in a weird way. And so that was like, well, I should do something about that. And it kind of was like, well, maybe there's a podcast in this. And then, I realized that when I married my second wife, there's a really big difference in the two people we are, so much so that two of my closest friends were really surprised that I was at all interested in her to a certain degree, right? She was, definitely not someone they would have picked if I were to find my next wife. You know what I mean? They would have been like, oh, Joe, they had a view of me, but their view of me was their unique view, right? not one that I even
Mm.
had of myself, which I find very interesting. How people have views of you that you don't even have of yourself, and
That point, we'll circle back to that
yeah,
point because I have had a similar experience. But yeah, keep going.
yeah. So I found that what I'd latched onto with my wife is that she made me feel like the person I needed to feel like to feel as though somebody. I'm not gonna say it was like blind support, but in a really weird way, it was like I couldn't do anything wrong, even though I'm very self aware and know when I do something wrong. So but she was all about saying to me, whatever you're gonna do, I want to be there with you when you do it, and I want to support you, and I want to be that person by your side. And every time I
Man,
turned, that she was there smiling at me, giving me energy to keep going, right? And I never had that before in a real meaningful way.
wow.
And so for me, it was like, okay, well, now I found this thing that actually makes me feel a little fearless, And so in that
Yeah,
relationship
yeah.
over time, because we are from very different worlds as well, not just because I'm American, she's Australian, but like a lot of other things. But then there's a lot in common. Um, you know, I kind of was also her sage. I was her sort of, I don't know, guide in a lot of different things that she was working through. And, and as I started to see, certain things happen with her, I had hypotheses that I was kind of testing out that led me to a lot of these other things, which was we are all trapped with this inner monologue that fucks us up. That is a bridge
Mm,
back to stuff we talked about before, which is stuff that
mm,
happens from 0 to 10, from 10 to 20, all these decisions you make, all these different things that happen later in life when you're all fucked and you can't be bothered anymore. I've been through many different things, and, and my story isn't unique. It's only unique to me, but it's very similar to a lot of different people's things.
yeah,
Like I hear your story and I can resonate with that. There's a lot about what you say that reminds me of things that I've been through, And so that in itself was this lightning bolt moment that went, you know what? Fucking hell. It's the only trick I have is that I can see myself in others, and then I spit at them what I think it is that I experienced, and that is what they're experiencing. And
yeah,
therefore they think, oh my God, this person, is reading my mind to a certain degree, and I'm not. I'm just simply making a connection over common ground that people don't
yeah,
normally make connections around.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of where it comes from. It's just like, well, why not talk about that? Because people want to feel fucking good. They want to find a way to feel all right about the craziness that they're in. They need to be reminded it can take time to get through it,
Mm,
and we all just, at the end of the day, just want to get home for dinner. We just want to make it
yeah,
home, fucking sit
yeah,
down, do some fucking offload, and just feel all right about it. Even if it was a
mm,
shit day or a month or whatever, you just want to get to that moment when you go, fuck, I'm glad that's over. Now I can move on to the
mm,
next thing or whatever the fuck it is. And obviously mental health is a pretty big deal as well. Like I have a massive advocate for exercising your brain muscle as much as possible to keep you going, and constantly challenging and varying the ground that's underneath you for that thing, because you know you could end up in a world where you're literally asleep from 10 a.m. in the morning till 5, 6 o'clock when you get off work, because you just can't be asked. Your body just is shutting down because it just doesn't want to move
mm,
anymore. And that can happen to you in your late 30s because you're just fucking burnt
mm.
because you can't find it. So challenging yourself on a regular basis, I think, is a big deal too. So yeah, so that's kind of a very long way of talking about it.
No, I think that's
Mm.
fantastic because I hadn't, sorry, I don't think I properly asked you before, but no, it's just real. Like
Yeah,
in the short thing that I'm hearing is like this is just real life, man.
yeah,
Like you don't need to be some eclectic, crazy human to be on this podcast. You just need to be someone that's willing to talk about what's going on.
yeah. Yeah, and I
You
think that's the trick, can you get people to be real is part of the game of this podcast, is finding some real moment where that's what's happening, But I think it's really
So
easy to do that. It's just, it's just a matter of, you got to pick the right guests, obviously, that are you kind of know. I kind of know when people
what's your vetting process?
gut feel, like I know when when I'm asking someone to be on it, whether or not that's going to be easy, because I've already talked to them, already know them. I've had a few more blind conversations where it kind of got to that, it wasn't that it was, I'm not going to say it was stale, but it wasn't as open. And, but what I, kind of was challenging myself to do in those ones is can I push, am I able to push people to kind of open up a bit more, to be more
Yeah.
open around things? And it really just comes down to the angle of which you're talking to them. And, like I'm also good at getting people to talk to me about stuff. So, it's not that it's hard or that I'm prying. It's just, it's about saying, well, how does this apply to you? How do you fit in the world? And oftentimes what ends up happening is that what I'm finding is that people, it's not inadvertent, but everyone has, a very similar set of circumstances that they're all powering through. We're not, it's not overly complex. I live a very dualistic reality where, I swing between conspiracy theorist and just simple answer Joe. And, I find that the only reason I go to conspiracy land is because it's far more fucking entertaining and I can come up with a lot of crazy things to talk about. But, the simple stuff is kind of boring, but sometimes that's where the sweetest part is in these conversations. It's like, we are all just trying to get through this, and, like without getting totally coronavirus crazy, we're in a moment right now where everybody's just trying to get through something. And even inside of all of that, there's diversification, there's varying degrees of crazy going on inside of all that, of, to the point where it's a government conspiracy all the way to, this is 5G poison and, all this shit. And you're just like, people are grasping at straws to find answers. But the simplest answer is we're in a pandemic. People are getting sick and dying. It's a very simple formula. We just have to avoid each other, and if you want to overcook it, you're going to make it crazy. And it's going to be something that you need it to be to deal with your anxiety about it, or you can accept it for what it is and keep going. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a funny business, the way that which the mind works. And, I find myself dancing on the line of crazy, almost every day, because I like to play with that. I'm willing to be the craziest person in the room and say things that I believe are volatile in order to have some fun with it. Because when I was a kid, that was kind of what I did. I spent a lot of time in university in parties, just, sitting in the sideline of conversations, waiting for the moment at which somebody kind of showed too many cards and then saying something crazy to make it, almost toxically crazy, so that we would all have something lunatic.
I'm gonna need an example.
Well, it was just one of those things where, you think about people that stir shit, right? Just for the fun of stirring some shit up. I wasn't alienating people, but I wait for someone to do a thing, and then inadvertently say something about someone else's position on something, whereby they might, have, kind of been a bit of a prick about it, or inadvertently said something that was potentially inflammatory of someone else. And then when nobody notices it, I go, did you hear what they said about you? Can you believe that they said that to your face and you didn't even notice it? Like, what kind of a person are you? Like, are you really that much of a pussy? And then, like, I just play with it because I can't believe that, people live in these existences where, they're just kind of running a million miles an hour and not really thinking about the consequence of, some things, and it's more out of play. It's just to play, have some fun, because the mundane is just too boring for me. I'd rather be a little bit on the crazy side. I do it in the office as well, man. Like there's times where I just start to lose my shit and I just can't stick it out anymore. And I just start walking around causing ruckus because there's nothing else I can do.
There's times where I would just say to, like, there's like pods, and I would just stare at my desk. Someone's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, there's just no way I can get myself to sit down at that computer right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not going to happen right now. And I just have to, I've started and stopped multiple times a formal process to get tested properly for ADHD.
Oh, really? Yeah, right.
To that degree, because it's just like, two minds about it. It's like, well, maybe I just haven't found something that's engaged me enough to never feel like that. Or maybe it's normal to feel like that. Everyone goes through it, but then I don't see other people cop it as bad as that. There are some times where I have to write off a whole day. I'm not going to get 1% of work done today because my mind is just, it's like a mental free for all. I'm not in pain. I'm not anxious.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting at that desk and typing an email. You're just not gonna get that out of me right now.
So have you tested your brain for hemisphere dominance?
No.
So right brain, left. Go take a few tests. The ones that there's really deep dive ones. I wouldn't suggest that that's necessarily a thing you do, but there are some that take about a half an hour, right? And they really run through a gambit of things. And I have taken a fair whack of these now across my life, and I'm whole brained. I'm 50-50 split constantly. I've never had one that didn't lean literally at, 50-50 or 49-51, like always bang down the middle.
What are they measuring?
They're measuring whether you're left brain or right brain dominance, right? So whether you're of an analytical slant or an artistical slant, right? And so your weight towards things. So what I find is that because I'm whole brained, I get caught where I can't engage in certain aspects of the work I do because my brain wants for the other way. It leans. So there'll be days where I need to be hugely problem solving focused. I need to be incredibly analytical, but my brain goes, no, let's fucking focus on designing a fucking wine label for some random reason. Like, no, let's work on, how to shade a fucking circle because that feels better to you right now than fucking going in and doing this grunt work, which, no, but then there's times where I have to be very artistic and very focused on the aesthetics of things and the way things flow and the way things work. But my brain's like, no, mechanically, I'm looking at this and I can't deal with it. I'm stuck in all my feedback and I can only look at this from a really analytical, mechanical, grindy, mathematic perspective, and I'm like, fuck me, like why now is my brain going to decide that that's more entertaining? That balancing.
I'm curious. So we like the left and right, like and the right being like the creative side and the artist brain.
Yeah.
What are we talking about when we say artist? So I've read a book. It's by Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
It's a really great book. It's called The Artist's Way. It's actually massive, and it's actually a 6-month program or 3-month program.
Yeah.
And
right.
There's progressional tasks that learn to teach you how to balance between that left and right. And one of the ways you do it is in the morning, you wait for 20 minutes, you got to put pen to paper and you got to write whatever comes out. And even if you can't come up with like free stuff, you have to just repeat the same words until something starts changing. You're not allowed to read the pages back for like 3 weeks or whatever. And the idea is for you to, because in the morning, you're most cynical and your left brain is overpowering. So you're much more in that fight or flight mode. And it's just the idea of that is to be able to identify which thought originated from which side.
Oh, right.
To know who's in charge at a moment, because you can acknowledge the dialogue and say which side you are. But what I still don't fully get is when we say the artist brain, are we just talking like beautiful aesthetic stuff? Or is it deeper than that? Because I can't say that I don't want to sit at that desk just because I don't want to type an email and I want to go paint a picture. Sometimes it's just I don't want to sit at that desk.
Motivation, I think, is that. I guess what I'm alluding to is that I've tended to feel that when I need to go and do logical work or analytical or strategic or like being very accurate or, like in essence, mathematical, type, things that have a precise nature, right? There's that sort of element where my brain pushes back, my body reacts to my mind not wanting to do that, right? It's like, no, you're not in the mood, right? Effectively. And so I've equated that in my experience to the nature of the swing I get from time to time. Sometimes I'm bang in the middle, like many days of the week, I'm just like, boom, I'm just fully can bounce back and forth between the two things. And I see both sides of like both visualization, seeing, being incredibly creative, seeing the entirety of sort of the whole of something being created. And I equate that to being able to prop up both parts of the problem, both from a practical and, sort of I don't know, logical perspective, as well as the almost the 3D design in my mind, So there's like
Right.
this balancing act that my brain plays, but then there's times where it's just, no, today is the day that you're just going to read poetry. You're very into your emotions and the way that you're feeling. And then the whole side of you needs to be milked and prodded and played with, because, that is what you need right now. You do not need to know, the way at which the earth spins is, and the importance of that today, like that kind of weirdness to the way that the brain reacts. And they've kind of said that, that the left and the right brain has those parts to it. Right. So, your right
So
brain
what did you call it?
Just, it's hemisphere testing. Yeah. Yeah. So left versus right brain test.
And you can do them online, or it's like a physical
there's online.
thing?
Yeah. There's heaps of online ones. And I guess what I'm saying by doing one online, there's heaps of little
I'm gonna
short
write
ones.
that down.
Yeah, there's little short ones you can do that kind of give you a feel. But I'm
Do
saying,
you have good ones you could
I haven't
shoot
done
me?
one in a while, but I'll have a look and I'll shoot one through to you.
Yeah, beautiful.
But yeah, it's all tied to personality and a lot of different things too. But yeah, it's kind of fun because there's a lot of things I think that have played out in my life that have very much to do with the fact of like this constant mental battle over who I am.
Does knowing help?
I feel like it does, because it allows me, an escape hatch. I don't feel guilty because I can't tackle it. And then I can actually say, look, I'm not there right now. My brain is working against me to do this work. And I can break down the work a little different. It also helps me think about how to break down the work that I do, so I'll know that some of that stuff is pretty heavy duty. And to your point, I tend to do the left brain dominant, the analytical stuff in the morning now, just because I want to get it out of the way when I'm perkier and,
you like,
yeah.
From what I've read, you will be better at it in the first half of your day.
Yeah. So I've noticed that over time.
You just will you'll outperform the past.
But if I'm 100% on, and I know that like I can do any of it, but it's always the first half of the day. But if I'm feeling a little on like the, oh shit, sleep night, maybe I've had a long week or whatever, I start to really focus on the analytical stuff in the morning as a result of just the nature of how my brain might decide to do stuff. But I'll feel it. Like even in this last couple of weeks of work, it's just been all like BA type analytical analysis crap. And I'm just like, oh my God, I want to build something. Please give me an artistic outlet to do a thing and make me feel good about my hands making a thing, because that's what I need right now to feel like I'm someone on the planet. Like that's the layering of it all. And I'm just like, fuck off, Joe. Really? Is this your thing right now? You got to focus up, buddy. So yeah.
No, I'm right there with you, dude.
Yeah.
And I still haven't found my answer. And admittedly, like, I've been on and off with my pursuit of trying to figure it out. The thing that's helped me the most, the most actionable thing that's had a positive result is Headspace. That Headspace app is worth its coding gold. Like,
so is that meditation type stuff?
Yeah, but it's the guided stuff. It's 10 minutes a day. You pick your area. It'll teach you how to like note. It'll teach you, and this isn't meditation like you're going to solve anything. This is how to identify, pivot, and how to be able to have this little incremental approach to being able to, like, my biggest thing is focus.
Yeah.
I'm the most focusedly fragile person fucking ever. Like, ever. Unless I'm like playing like a full engaged game, like an actual video game, or the stakes are extremely high.
Yeah.
You could get my attention with a 5-cent coin. Like, you could, test it next time you walk past me whenever we're back in that building. But, so a big thing for me is focus and obviously anxiety. So, but just by doing 10 minutes a day on each of those, and I was actually put onto them by a psychologist who was like, listen, you are the genetic wiring, the neurological wiring of your brain, you are never going to escape anxiety.
Right.
There's no cure. There's no solve.
No, there's not.
You need to accept it. There's no solve.
Yeah.
But what there is, a very clear management technique. very simple management technique for you to be able to say, that thought isn't me, that thought is a thought. And this is a repetitious pattern thing that occurs every time there's a particular trigger.
Right,
so once you start to observe these things happen and you observe them happening in your own head, it's actually it's 10 times more powerful than like a Zen.
Interesting.
Because you can just see it.
Yeah.
You can see it, and you can laugh, and I've started to laugh at myself. Like it's quite interesting. It's like, you idiot, you've had the same thought cycle for 6 hours straight.
Yeah, right.
Like, look at you. Like you actually are just like, you're being silly. Like you're being silly. Like, how many times could you possibly have the same thought and expect a different outcome? Like, so what? There's this thing of noting where I don't know if you've done this stuff before or haven't.
No, I've not. But I think my wife she's meditating. I think she. Do you subscribe to this one? Do you have to do like an annual subscription?
You subscribe? Yeah, it's an annual subscription.
I think she got
it's
this.
It's $150 a year.
Yeah.
$150 a year, but man, it is. I would pay $400 a year.
Yeah.
Now there's a few others.
She's got anxiety like through the roof, so she's doing it to do a very similar thing. To be honest, she's actually going through a very similar thing.
Don't get me wrong. Like my levels of anxiety are not. They don't put me in the corner of a room in the fetal position.
Yeah.
They just suck my energy.
Yeah.
It sucks my energy with overthinking and not being able to break mental patterns and not being able to break the way in which I respond to things and letting emotions take complete control. It's a regaining control experience. And I am not a fluffy, hey, this sounds great, let's sit in a nice room and have some night. Like, no, I'm not that at all. I need like really practical, direct. This is how we're going to move. This is the end goal for the next 30 days. This is the 10 minutes every day we're going to do. You can do 15 if you want. There's a 15-minute option. You can do a 5-minute option if you want. You can do a 20-minute option if you want.
Yeah.
For me, the sweet spot was 10 minutes as soon as I wake up or just before bed. And one sec. Thank you. Just before bed or when you wake up. And it's a fully guided educational process. There's no, we're going to relax you. Let's talk to you about, like, let's calm your breathing. Let's let's either run through different parts in your body to try and listen to how different parts of your body are responding. And let's talk through, as you're doing that, what you're experiencing and why you're experiencing it. And then they take it to a next level of, okay, so we're telling you to focus, say, on your solar plexus, which is like your tummy area.
Yeah.
And we're telling you to focus on your solar plexus, but every time you go to focus on your solar plexus, you keep thinking about that last email you were supposed to send today that you didn't. We're going to call that a negative thought, or we're going to call that a distraction. Or say you go to think about your solar plexus and you're thinking about how your neck is hurting. So that's a physical sensation that's distracting you. So what we're going to do over the next 10 minutes is we're going to run through different parts of the body, and every time we have a distraction, whether that's a thought or a sensation, we're going to identify it, we're going to push it to the side, we're going to come back to the middle.
Yeah, right.
And it's this process of being able to, and that's like the very basic version, just for focus. That was just for focus.
Yeah, right.
And it's like it. Not only do you come out of the session and you're like operating at like 30 to 40% of what you typically would, you're unpacking the layers that are preventing you from performing at your peak. So couldn't recommend it more. The guy needs the Nobel Prize. How long have you been doing it? Man, I started in 2017.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Like let me see what my record says.
That's good.
So admittedly, I don't do it every day.
Yeah.
I just hit 78 hours of meditation in 10-minute increments. That's a lot, like when you think about it.
Yeah, wow.
I've completed 78 hours of meditation. So just on that app. But and it goes into pain management. It goes into like grief. It talks about productivity. They have series. They'll do like 30-day series or sometimes 90 days, where the idea is just 10 minutes a day. Just come in 10 minutes a day. We're going to top this up. But the most important thing, and what I love so much about Headspace, is that this isn't a solution. It's an identifying, educational, self-actualization, understanding process, so that you can have a really traumatic event happen and know exactly how to navigate it emotionally.
Wow. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, I've thought about meditation many times, you know, and I've never I've done a couple of like small things, but I've never gone on the regular with it. I've considered it. It's just, I've just not had you know, I don't know what it is. It's just not come into my vision as I should go after this for a period of time, but maybe I'll check it out now that I'm in now that I'm in the apocalypse. I've got more time to kind of take 10 minutes, right?
So I've seen like, there's a few things I've observed. One is the stigma around meditation. You just think of people crossing their legs in yoga pants. This isn't that.
No.
You need to sit somewhere for 10 minutes. I've done sessions on a treadmill.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nice.
Like you can be a bit creative with it. I've done, like they say, you should be sitting down in your chair, but like, you know, you make it. What the goal is, you just need to be able to control focus. I've seen it change lives of very different people around me, and I usually have to work pretty hard to sell them the idea of getting into it. Like one friend, he trades like government bonds and securities and shares and forex. Like he's a full-time trader. I think extremely long hours, very tumultuous days. Like the life of a trader. Like you can understand what they go through.
Yeah.
And he will, every now and then he'll message me and thank me and say, like, this is like as hard financy dude as you can get. He's beyond the world of economics, not, you know, like love and equality and all these things. But even him, he's a beautiful person, don't get me wrong, but it's like just the archetype of person, just to put into perspective. And every now and then he'll still message me and say, like, you saved part of my life by introducing me to Headspace and by forcing it on me over a period of a year or two, because like I just kept dropping it because I knew I can't imagine many people doing it for a week and saying it didn't do anything for them.
Yeah.
By the end of the week, like, but look, it might not be for everyone. I get it, but the people that I've been able to that I've seen go from nothing to trying it for 1 to 2 weeks, 10 minutes a day, they're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Maybe I can send you a, I'm not trying to force it upon you, but I think I can send you like a full access trial as a referral thing.
Oh, okay. Send it, man. I'm not against it at all. It's just one of those things where for me, it's more around utility. So finding that thing that connects with me to do a thing. So like I already do, like I never said I'd do yoga, but I find that I do like versions of yoga now all the time to deal with the fitness that I do. So like, you know, it's the utility of it. So like, I think like, to be honest about it, there's, you know, the apocalypse and being stuck at home and being around, you know, the wife all the time. And, you know, the monotony is wearing, it's wearing me a bit. So it'd be good to get out of my head a bit and, you know, get a refresher. And I think that may be the utility there is like, you know, it is about my headspace, to be honest. It's not that I'm having any thought other than just I'm starting to find the monotony boring. And it's like, you know, you know, my wife's coming up and saying hi to me and I'm like, yo, why? Hi. I saw you like 2 seconds ago, you know, like, do you really need to say hi? You know, I'm starting to get like edgy about it. And I'm just like, why are you getting edgy, man? Like, fuck, we're just stuck in the house. Like, it's all good. But yeah. Oh, nice one, man. Well, I might let you go, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, another good session, dude.
Yeah, thanks for take 2. I won't delete it. I will not. I'm gonna just transfer it right onto the hard drive immediately after this so that I don't fuck it up. Man. God damn it.
Yeah, but you're always a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, man.
I can't believe how quick time goes when I talk to you.
Yeah, bud. Yeah, same here. And I'll see you in the traps, man. I'll see you in the traps.
All right, man.
Have a good one. Have a good weekend.
Good, take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye. And that's it. That's the chat. That's the take two, and I didn't fuck it up. I didn't delete it. I did immediately put that onto the hard drive, and then I sat on it for a month. Anyways, enough of that guilt. I'm over it. I'm back at it. Hopefully, I can tee up some more interviews and get some more of this regularity back on the old agenda, the old podcast agenda. I have deviated on the book path. I kind of, with the pandemic, moved away from my apocalyptic approach to life. Felt a little too on the nose. But I have been writing more of a different one. I've kind of partially written 3 chapters, which is, again, a milestone. It's more than I've normally written. And because I got a puppy, I've been up at like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And for some reason, my brain just said, what the fuck? Let's throw down some stuff. Interesting. I think it's fueled by a lot of the work I'm currently doing, a lot of the thinking I'm doing, a lot of the old paying attention to the humans and getting amongst it. But I am enjoying it, and I'm hoping that I get somewhere with the book. Doesn't matter if I publish it. It would be just nice to have ticked off that I have done a thing. Anyhow, people, I'm out. This is a long one. I appreciate you sticking out the old podcast. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys in the next one that I do. Thank you very much.